So today I wanted to talk a bit about my recent visit to Coyote Ridge Correctional Center, which is in uh, it's about 3 hours away from here. It's about 40 minutes from the Tri-Cities area. And so I was invited to go that day. They were having a Buddha Day. So each year in some of the prisons, they have a special kind of celebration day. And for the Buddhist groups. And one of the big reasons why they like this is because they get special food. So that always makes them very excited because uh, the food is, sounds like generally it's not so edible, but on these days it's quite nice. And they get ice cream and, so special treats. Um, so Coyote Ridge is a minimum and medium security prison. I think it was built in 92 maybe, somewhere around there. And they have about 2,500 inmates, so it's pretty big. And it's a very interesting place. Often prisons are put in places that are kind of the area is depressed. It's not so beautiful. So this one is right off I think it's Highway 82, right off the highway, kind of on a slope, and the wind blows continually. So there's always wind there. And when you drive up, everything is gray. There is no grass. It is either concrete or gray gravel in all of the yard. And so you go into the front door, the administration building, and you sign in, you give them your license, some identification, and then you put whatever you brought into a little locker because you can't take anything in there. You go through a security screen, to a metal detector, I think is what it is. And then when you're ready to go in, and you have to be escorted, and you get a badge that says visitor. And so we wait at the door, and then it's an electronic door, and it opens, slides open, and you walk in, and then you're in this little room, and then there's another door, but you have to wait for the first door to close before the next one opens. And throughout the entire sequence of going to where you're going, this is the situation. Then you go to another area, and there are guards there, and you show your visitor badge, and then they open another door. Then a couple more doors, I think, and then you walk into the yard, what's called the yard. And so the yard is surrounded by very high fence, and then on the top of the fence is razor wire, which is about probably 2 feet at least in diameter, like this on top of the fence, very sharp. So there would be no way you could get, over that for sure. And again, gray, all gray, not one thing growing in there. Now, all the prisons aren't like this. Some have some greenery and foliage, like Airway Heights here outside of Spokane. They let the inmates garden and plant flowers and grass, and so it's quite nice. And boy, what a difference that makes, I tell you. It's so stark when you walk in there. It just is quite depressing. You can just feel the heaviness of it. As we were walking across the yard, though, inmate came with a dog on a leash, and they do have a program there where they train dogs to be service dogs. And everybody that just looked at him smiled, and it lit up everything. There was another living critter there that would show love and could receive love. So that was quite nice. And then we kept walking and ended up at kind of a, I don't know what the name of that building is called, but it's kind of like an activity center, sort of. There's a library, and then there's just a lot of rooms. They kind of look like classrooms, and that's where different religious groups meet. And for that day, we were in the chapel, so um, a lot of Christian things on the wall and that kind of thing, but they kind of get rid of some of that stuff in the pews and such and get it open, and then on a couple tables put up an altar, and you know, it's kind of, they only have what is offered to them, and so it's kind of a mix of all different kind of traditions. You know, it's kind of interesting. But anyhow, so there's an altar there. And there were, oh, and the other thing about prisons is that one of the ways that they manage the inmates is that they only can walk at certain times. And they call this movement. And actually, everybody that's in there can only walk at certain times. So that's how they control all the people. And so when movement happens, that's when we can go in. That's when inmates can go from their cell to an activity. And other than that, you don't walk in between times. And this is how they keep track of where everybody is, because, you know, 2,000 people. And so, so we walked into the chapel, and Tanya, who offers so much to the Abbey, she's our webmaster and other things, she teaches there weekly, gives them some information about Buddhism. And so she met me, and so then we went in together. And there was probably, I didn't really count, but I think maybe 30, between 30 and 40 people in the room. So a pretty good group of folks. And you kind of get all kinds of people in these groups. Sometimes people want to go to this because they serve food. And the chaplain tries to screen out that, and so that it's people that are interested in Buddhism. And some are very new, don't know anything. Others have been practicing for years. So you get a whole mix of different kinds of people. And so the first thing we did was some meditation, and the chaplain is very wonderful who is there. He is so kind. He is very open to all different faith traditions. He comes and he listens and he interacts and facilitates so that it runs smoothly. If we need something we don't have, he tries to get. He is just wonderful, wonderful fellow. So first we did meditation, then gave a little talk, and then there were 5 people that wanted to take refuge in precepts. So that happened, and of those 5, they all took all 5 precepts, so for life. So, and these were folks that have been practicing for some time, without a doubt, and you know, had thought a lot about it. And Tanya had kind of helped them with their questions and such over, you know, some months before this day happened. So it was quite nice. Then after that, lunch came, and they had vegetarian and meat. So it was interesting, you know, that they try to adhere to the, you know, vegetarian part of our tradition. And the people in the room served it, very gracious, only trying to be helpful, all of them. Bow when you come in, where would you like to sit? Is there something I could get you? You know, here, would you like some more food? You know, just so kind, so kind. Then after lunch, let's see, then what was next? Oh, then they have kind of a facsimile of a mandala. So they have a big sheet, and somebody has painted on it a outline of a lotus. And then some of the volunteers get rice, and they dye it different colors. And so you all stand around the table and you fill in, all the different, shapes with the different colors and such. And the significance of that is when they're doing this and then they start relaxing, then they start talking and asking questions and you get to know them. And so it's really a lovely interchange between them. And what always strikes me about most of the folks I talk to is that they feel so bad about what they did. And many of them, really, they don't like themselves. They feel like, they did such terrible things. And, some of them did, but, and I was thinking about, it's really easy to get critical of ourselves, isn't it? Yeah. And then think about being locked up in a cage, literally, and everything you do has to be done with somebody else's permission. And when you're in the prison, that's true. I needed to visit the restroom, and they have to find a guard. They have to unlock the door, take me out, unlock the door. So there's nothing that you can do there. Just do, Everything is so structured and so tight, And so these fellows really work a lot on trying to see themselves as they really are, that they're changed now and they're not terrible, irredeemable, terrible people. And so that's why also when you go and you talk to them about Buddha nature, they just light up, it's like, oh, so that they can, open to that they're not some kind of throwaway person that, will never change. So that's very wonderful to see that they can open up to their own potential. And the room is extremely gentle. The people are very kind. When I'm in the chapel, when in the room with the people, I never feel at risk. Sometimes walking out in the yard and the movement, sometimes then, I can feel like, I'm not sure. But boy, in the room with these practitioners, always I feel just so 100% safe, It's like they have my back, There would be no problem there. They are so appreciative of people coming. Many of them came up to us over and over again. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, reaching their hand out. And of course, I shake their hands. So it's really a lovely experience always. And for me, what it does for my practice is that when my mind gets complainy or, it's too difficult or whatever, whenever I go to prison and visit, it's like, I have it so easy, and it really changes my perspective again. But I will say, too, that many of these inmates that are strong practitioners, once they turn their mind from that their problem is outside of themselves, and they realize that the practice is inside, is here, they become such powerful practitioners. I have met many inmates that are much stronger practitioner than I am. And it's because of their circumstance. They take everything that happens onto the path. Most of them are so focused on trying to develop their bodhicitta that they only try to offer kindness no matter what is happening in front of them. And over time, what you see is that these people are really esteemed by the others in the group, and they're very powerful. And then, like the chaplain says, these people in this group affect this entire prison with how they practice. So it's very, very powerful, and it's a small microcosm of what a dedicated group of people that are going in one direction, how they can affect their environment. So it's quite lovely. So let's make prayers for these inmates to have clarity and have circumstance to practice and have what they need so that they can continue on their path and reach enlightenment for the benefit of everyone.